Hi everyone, welcome to Lab 3. I'm Isabel, your TF, and I will be your guide to optimal foraging theory. To introduce some context, over evolutionary time, natural selection causes members of a species to exhibit foraging behaviors that are specific to their species and that have been optimized as that species adapts to their environment. While foraging, organisms must weigh the costs and benefits of each prey type. Costs include the time and energy expended. Under the constant, strong selection pressures posed by the ecosystem, conserving energy is integral to survival. Optimal foraging theory takes both costs and benefits into account by comparing the combined search time and handling time with energy gained from eating the food. Optimal foraging theory is a model that helps to explain foraging behavior. We can use it to help understand why animals make the foraging decisions that they do. It also helps us determine whether an animal is a specialist, a generalist, or somewhere in between. To define these, a specialist will forage for an extended period of time for a high-value prey item, whereas a generalist prefers a low search time that yields mixed results. To clarify some of these terms, energy gain equals energy obtained by eating the food item, and energy loss comes from the previously mentioned variables, search time and handling time. Search time refers to the time and energy spent looking for food. This time could have been used instead on other endeavors, such as finding mates or protecting young, which is why we would consider this an energy loss. Handling time refers to the time and energy spent breaking down and consuming the food. This time also may include a large energy expenditure, for example, a pride of lions hunting a wildebeest. Time and energy must be spent stalking the prey, chasing and capturing the prey, and then some more time and energy are needed to consume and digest the prey. Consider an anaconda. To fully consume prey, it has to devote a lot of time to getting prey in its mouth, swallowing, and digesting. This whole process requires stillness and relative safety and can take weeks to accomplish. We can think of optimal foraging theory as a way to see feeding behavior as an optimizing process. If access to energy is limited, natural selection will favor individuals within a population that maximize their energy intake per unit time. Optimal foragers capture and consume food with the greatest potential energy density while expending the least amount of time and energy. This is how we can determine profitability. So, if the energetic and temporal costs of obtaining food outweigh the benefits, like protein and energy intake, to be gained, the animal will seek out food that is easier to obtain. Here's a graph depicting foraging behavior in shore crabs. As you can see, profitability declines for really big mussels and is optimized in medium-sized mussels. This is because search and handling time becomes too large, and it is too energetically expensive to spend their energy on prey this size. To explain this further, shore crabs forage selectively when the mussel population is abundant. According to the graph, they will ignore smaller mussels as the energy yield is less than the energy yield of larger mussels. Crabs will also ignore much larger mussels because they are difficult to crush and risk potential damage to the crab's claws. Crabs will selectively identify and feed on mid-sized mussels, provided the mussel supply is in abundance. An example we can apply to our human life is Halloween. When trick-or-treating, you need to consider factors as a foraging animal does. Maybe there's a house farther away that you know gives out king-size candy bars or your favorite kind of candy. Well, the ends, getting a few king-size candy bars or your favorite candy, justify the means, missing out on trick-or-treating locally and getting a bunch more candy that is just kind of okay. What about competition between trick-or-treaters? There's a definite end time, so there's limited time for all of this and limited energy to expend. Next Halloween, consider if you are a candy specialist or a candy generalist. On that note, let's talk about specialists a little bit. If an organism has a handling time that is long relative to their search time, like the Venus flytrap, it's a specialist. A Venus flytrap is pretty much constantly searching for prey, as they are waiting for flies to encounter them. Handling times for consuming prey are also very long. A specialist diet also works well in productive environments because their prey of choice is abundant enough to allow a more specific diet. This method of foraging doesn't just apply to carnivores. Pandas are herbivores that live in environments with productive plant life, so they can specialize on one prey type, bamboo. Generalists, on the other hand, have short handling times relative to their search times and will have more of a variety in their diet. A generalist diet works well in unproductive environments because when food is scarce, opportunities to gain any energy should not be ignored. Coyote are a great example of a generalist carnivore because they eat pretty much anything with meat on its bones that they can kill. They also are not afraid of scavenging and increasing their range in order to find food. Rats are another common generalist. They live in cities, traditionally unproductive environments, but through constant scavenging and having the willingness to eat anything, they're prolific. They have optimized their diet using a generalized foraging strategy. Here are more examples of specialists and generalists. The monarch caterpillar, pictured on the left, is an extreme specialist. It can only eat milkweed. This is advantageous because the caterpillars sequester toxins from the plant in their bodies, so the butterflies are unpalatable to birds, discouraging predation. The raccoon, pictured on the right, is an extreme generalist. It eats anything. This is why they are so good at living in unproductive, human-dominated habitats. The lion, however, is up for debate. Generally, most species don't follow a strictly specialist or generalist diet and modify their foraging behavior based on changes in their environment and food availability and its relative value. If zebra are abundant, they may lean towards a specialist diet. If the typical food source is scarce, lions may scavenge animal carcasses, or even prey on humans if they are abundant in the area. Take a moment to fill in the blank. In summary, organisms will specialize when profitable prey are common or differences in prey profitability are great, and they'll generalize when profitable prey are rare or differences in profitability are slight. Next, we're going to talk about the diet breadth model, which uses this colorful equation to predict whether a predator will increase its range of prey. Let's break this down. The first part of this equation, E of I over H of I, is equal to the profitability of prey I. E of I is equal to the energy extracted from prey I, and H of I is equal to the handling time for prey, which includes capturing, killing, eating, and digesting. So the profitability of prey can be calculated by dividing the energy gained by the handling time. The second part of the equation, E over S plus H, represents the profitability of the current diet. This would show you how good this animal's diet is now. E is equal to the average energy of the current diet, S is equal to the average search time of the current diet, H is equal to the average handling time of the current diet. So to determine the profitability of the current diet, you essentially divide average energy by average search time plus average handling time. So, a predator should eat the prey I if the profitability of prey I is greater than the profitability of their current diet. So, according to this model, a predator should add a new prey item to its diet, thereby increasing diet breadth when the profitability of the new prey, the first part of the equation, is greater than the average profitability of the current diet. Next, we're going to talk about the in-person lab activity, which is going to be lab foraging. To start, we have to calculate the diet breadth. Diet breadth represents a consumer's optimal range of food types, so the product will be a number and the unit will be food items. This is the metric animal behaviorists use to determine if an animal is a generalist or a specialist. One of the components of this optimal foraging theory lab will be calculating diet breadth. You will do this while foraging across 6 landscapes set up for you in the lab. In this equation, diet breadth, or B, is equal to 1 over the summation of relative frequency of prey I squared. Here's an example. Here's your diet in a given day. Hopefully not really. We have Red Bull, pizza, cookies, and bananas. We're going to first calculate the relative frequency of Red Bull. Frequency is the number of Red Bull in the diet divided by the total number of food items in the diet. We're finding the relative frequency of Red Bull here, so we count the amount of this particular prey item, which in this case is 5, and divide it by the amount of total food items, which is 10. So the relative frequency of Red Bull in this diet is 0.5. We'll do the same thing here with the cookie. To calculate relative frequency, we need to divide the number of cookies by the total number of food items. The relative frequency of a cookie here is 0.10 cookies in this diet. And we do that for every food item. In this case, there are 4 to compute the breadth of this diet. We then plug the relative frequencies of each food item into the equation and calculate our diet breadth. So we can see the diet breadth equals 2.78. A more generalist diet would be closer to 4, and a more specialist diet would be even lower. This diet is not at either extreme, but tends towards being more specialist. This person definitely has a preference and doesn't eat an equal proportion of everything in their diet. An extreme specialist eats one item and has a diet breadth of 1, because it only eats the one item. In this lab, a diet breadth of less than 2 is a specialist diet because we will be only using 3 food types. A generalist will eat multiple food items in varying ratios. The 3 food items that we'll be using are chocolate, which is high quality, starbursts, which are medium quality, and peppermints, which are low quality. So when you see a chocolate, you should eat it, while the other items are of lower value. For this lab, you are like a squirrel looking around for food. You will forage in 6 landscapes, which will each be set up as a 10 by 5 grid of cups, each with 1 piece of candy underneath. And you should start with any cup and look for food under 1 cup at a time. You can only move over 1 cup, directly up, down, left, right, or diagonally. You will have 6 minutes total foraging time per landscape. When you look under a cup, you can choose either to take the prey item or not to take the prey item. When you choose to take a prey item, you have to wait 10 seconds to account for handling time, then replace the cup. Before moving on to the next cup, you must wait 5 seconds to account for search time, because in nature, food items aren't always directly next to each other. So, if you eat a prey item, you have to wait 15 seconds, 5 for search time and 10 for handling. You must eat at least every 3rd prey item or starve, so don't forget to do that. Because the activity is supposed to mimic food foraging behavior in natural ecosystems, you may be forced to eat lower quality food like peppermint if you find yourself in an unproductive landscape. Replace candy under appropriate cup once you've eaten it, and do not actually eat the candy. The people in the following lab sections and rotations will be using the same materials, so please don't actually eat the candy. Those who come in person will be given some candy to take home that wasn't handled by a bunch of other students, because we know it would suck to do a candy activity and not get any candy at the end. Each group should have at least 1 in-person forager and 1 virtual timer/recorder recording the data in the Google Sheet. You will continue to work with your same partner as you travel around the landscapes. If you are an in-person forager, these will be your general directions. I will give a cue to start once everyone is ready, and then you will begin foraging, and your virtual partner will begin to time you and record how much of each type of food item you eat at each station. For this to work, you need to announce to your virtual partner that you've found a prey item, what you found, and if you choose to eat it. Once you've recorded the total amount of food and proportion of food types eaten per landscape, you can calculate the diet breadth B and record it in the Google Sheet. If you were a virtual partner, these directions are for you. You will need to record the number of each prey type your partner eats, whether it's chocolate, starburst, or peppermint, at each station. Time your partner as they forage. Once you hear the cue, set a timer for 6 minutes so your partner knows when to stop foraging and you can both move on to the next landscape. The in-person forager can count time themselves when they choose to eat a food item, so you don't need to count the seconds for them as they do that. Finally, you need to calculate the diet width for each landscape, but you can do this with your partner if you prefer. Then, put these calculations in the Google Sheet, which can be found on Blackboard. We have to follow several COVID-19 guidelines, which are: show your TF your green badge before entering the lab, face coverings are required, maintain a 6-foot distance from other students, wear gloves while foraging, and sanitize your workstation with alcohol spray and paper towels before leaving lab. Remember, another group will be using the same supplies in 15 minutes. Once we are done, you can calculate and record the diet width for each landscape in the Google Doc. This is what it looks like. Please find your section, which will be located at the top of the Google Sheet, and also they will be delineated in tabs at the bottom, as well as your corresponding time slot. I'm calling the first time slot rotation 1, the second 2, and the third 3 to try and mitigate confusion. Another alternate activity for virtual learners who aren't paired up with an in-person student is the SymBio module. I will send directions out on how to download it and how to sign up and join your lab section. If you do the SymBio activity, it will be due that night. So if you are in the Monday lab, the SymBio activity is due that Monday night. It would be easiest if you completed the SymBio activity during the couple of hours allotted to your lab section that day. It will take around 45 minutes, the same amount of time that it takes the foragers and their virtual partner to do their lab activity. If you do the SymBio activity, your post-lab will just be the first 2 questions in the handout. You will have separate questions to answer in your SymBio activity, which will account as some of your post-lab, so you will not have to do the full post-lab assigned for the foraging activity. For the post-lab, you will need to calculate the average diet breadths across the 6 landscapes. Do this by taking the average of each group's diet breadths for each landscape, found in the Google Doc, then create a bar graph and answer some questions using what we've learned during the lab. This post-lab is due the week of February 22nd on the day of your respective lab section. The post-lab handout will be found on Blackboard under Lab 3 Optimal Foraging Theory, and these slides will as well. I look forward to actually seeing a lot of you in person this week.